in Ballard, Bath, Carter, Clark, Elliott, Greenup, Henry, Johnson, Kenton, Lawrence, Montgomery, Powell, Rockcastle, and Union County seems to have an area that was hit pretty hard. Some of those may just be a couple of houses. Some of them are entire communities. But as you can see, this storm and the tornadoes involved had statewide impacts hitting numerous areas across the state. And that's one of the reasons that I am so thankful that Kentuckians have remained so weather aware. We didn't have as many people out in the first storm because people were paying attention. We did lose that one life. But in the second round where we saw those tornadoes, right now we don't have a single confirmed fatality from the second part. We had a lot of businesses, including state government, that let out early. If I had a concern going into this, it's just that we face so much that people might not react with the care and the need that is required. But Kentuckians showed they continue to be weather aware. And we've learned some tough lessons over the last several years. So to Kentuckians, keep it up. Make sure you are tuning in to your meteorologist, watching our social media accounts. This weather that we face these days is dangerous. And because everybody was prepared, with the exception of the tragic loss of the young man, it looks like everybody is okay today. In addition to the state of emergency, we have 12 county declarations of emergencies. They include Anderson, Bourbon, Boyd, Clark, Elliott, Fayette, Greenup, Henry, Jefferson, Jessamine, Kenton, and Union. On top of that, we have 7 cities that we have local states of emergencies that have been declared. They include Ashland, Catlettsburg, Flatwoods, Greenup, Louisville, Mount Vernon, and Raceland. We currently have around 15,132 power outages. That is down from 32,732. Let me tell you, these companies get after it and getting their people in after these storms and really work hard. We can also share good news on the communications front. We have cell service that was down in Greenup, Carter, and Boyd counties. A major fiber line has been restored, and a majority of cell service is back. We believe this outage was connected to one of 2 major power lines down on interstates. We had one on I-75 around the 104 mile marker for a period of time, and then we had another on I-64, I believe, in Greenup County. And the work on that may have led to a severing of a line that impacted cell phone service. But all of that is back up now, and I was impressed by how quickly those major power lines were able to be pulled off the interstate. And while they created some long backups, those stoppages were not nearly as long as might have been expected by that type of occurrence. We're also aware that Catlettsburg and Boyd County has wastewater operating under emergency generator power. In Henry County, the main booster that feeds Eminence and Newcastle has lost power and has been restored with no loss of water to customers. So that's back up and running, and it doesn't look like there was ever water loss. Counties are starting the federal individual assistance and the public assistance damage assessments today. Remember, there are 2 different systems. This one, I'm guessing, will meet the public assistance damage assessment. It's pretty widespread, but we'll see. It's got to meet that threshold. Remember, individual assistance is a pretty high bar. We've met it in the floods and the tornadoes. We'll see on this one. It's going to be a pretty big effort on this one because, remember, it's statewide. A lot of the communities aren't even connected. So getting in reliable information will be really important to submitting that paperwork and seeing if we apply for individual assistance. So everyone should photograph all damages before cleaning up, and you need to report the damages that you've sustained as a citizen to the local county emergency management officials. For questions on how to proceed with insurance after a disaster, you can also visit insurance.ky.gov. Interim Emergency Management Director Dustin Heiser is here to provide some additional details.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor, for having me here today. As many of you know, Kentucky has recently experienced significant weather events, including tornadoes and substantial straight-line wind damage. Today marks the 50th anniversary of the 1974 super outbreak tornado event, a tragic event in our state's history where many Kentuckians lost their lives. While we commemorate this somber occasion, it's also a moment to reflect on our progress in storm preparedness and response. One key role of emergency management is to act as liaisons and coordinate effort among various state agencies. We partner with state agencies to identify resources and align them with the evolving needs of communities affected by such events. Our collaboration ensures efficient deployment of resources to mitigate the impact of disasters and support affected individuals and families. Preparedness is not just a responsibility of emergency management. It's a collective effort that involves local leaders, first responders, citizens, and the entire Commonwealth. Being prepared means having plans in place, staying informed, staying weather aware, and knowing how to respond to disasters when disasters strike. We urge all Kentuckians to take proactive steps to prepare themselves, their families, and their communities for future emergencies. While yesterday's unfortunate loss reminds us of the dangers posed by severe weather, it also underscores the advancements we've made in storm warning and communication of safety messages. Our ability to swiftly disseminate warnings safety information has undoubtedly saved lives and minimized the impacts of such events. One thing I would like to emphasize to citizens is before beginning any cleanup efforts, it is essential to carefully document your damages by taking pictures, taking detailed notes. Documenting damages helps assess the extent of the disaster. This also expedites the process of resources and will aid in your insurance claim process. We urge affected individuals and communities to prioritize documentation of damages to expedite recovery efforts effectively. In closing, I want to express my gratitude to all the first responders, volunteers, and agencies who are working tirelessly to support affected communities. As we navigate through the aftermath of this weather event, let's continue to stand together, support one another, rebuild stronger and more resilient communities. Thank you again for your attention and support during these challenging times. We remain committed to serving and safeguarding the people of Kentucky.
Thank you, Director Heiser. Two quick points on that. First, for individuals out there, why we're asking you to report your damages to the county EM director is because we need to reach a certain threshold of overall damage to our citizens if the federal government is going to provide individual assistance. It's a significant threshold. It requires a big natural disaster. So what that means is we need everybody to make that report if there's going to be a chance to do that. And that doesn't necessarily mean you'll need the individual assistance, but there are people out there that do. And so your reporting, your damage might be the difference between somebody who really needs that extra help getting it and it not being available. So please consider doing that. And the second thing is the statement I'm about to make is not about politics, but about policy. We are once again in a natural disaster, and a significant one, that we would not be able to respond to the way we have if the limitations in the current pending budget had been in the last budget. For the first time in this upcoming budget, the legislature is trying to limit the amount of resources that we can spend to respond to a natural disaster before calling them into a session. We were already over that amount before the tornadoes hit Trimble County and Carroll County and Gallatin got hit by weather. We couldn't have opened General Butler State Park there. If we'd have needed National Guard, we might not have been able to bring them out. Pallets of water and others wouldn't have been able to help with. In this one, because you're about to hear some of what the Guard's doing, would have been the same thing. At least when you look at the way it's written, it would have required calling people in during the natural disaster where it wouldn't have been safe to travel, and or a day or two after, and then how long it takes from there. I mean, we have to respond to an emergency in an emergent manner. And thankfully, we're able to do that right now because that type of law hasn't gone into effect. But it's really important as we think about the people that are out there that need help. We know that there are going to be people out there that need help in the future too. All I'm asking for is the ability to help them in the short term. And I hope that we can get that fixed so that we always have the resources to help our neighbors when they've been knocked down. Next, we have some updates from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. Our transportation crews were monitoring weather conditions ahead of yesterday's storms. Crews jumped into action to help clear roads of large debris and to help manage traffic. A lot of the highway impacts were in central and eastern Kentucky. They included crashes involving large trucks or structures that were blown into roadways. I think we had a barn on a road. As of this morning, there are fewer than 10 blocked state roads due to down power lines or flooding. Two big ones that they include are Kentucky 3179 in Barron County, where a section of the road is washed away, and Kentucky 393 in Oldham County, as we're working to restore power lines near Oldham County High School. Once again, I get to report that the best National Guard in the entire country, and they won that award. It's not just what I believe, it's absolutely true. Went into service immediately. 14 members of the Kentucky Air National Guard's 123rd Civil Engineer Squadron helped clear roadways in Prospect early this morning. The airmen arrived with 4 trucks and multiple chainsaws around 10:45 p.m. So they started last night and then worked until early in the morning. Working carefully to avoid fallen power lines with help from LG&E and the Anchorage Fire Department, they removed several trees blocking access to about 100 homes. Airmen were on site just 2 hours after being notified in their homes. The debris was loaded onto trucks for removal and road access was restored by 2 a.m. I want to thank our fast-acting transportation crews, local first responders, and our Guard members who've worked nonstop to help keep Kentuckians safe. Restoring these connections are critical not only for travelers, but for first responders, utilities, and everybody who's a part of the rebuilding process. As a reminder, Kentuckians can check traffic conditions before traveling at goky.ky.gov. And remember, there's some more showers scheduled today. It looks like it's going to get pretty cold tonight. There's going to be a lot of water that's still out there on the roadway. So everybody, please be careful. And remember, if you see a flooded roadway, stop and turn around and go a different direction. Now, it's a lot better to know that you're going to be okay and that you're going to be there for your family than to chance it on something you might not think is dangerous. So with that, I'll turn it over to Secretary Gray for additional updates.
Well, thanks, Governor, and thanks to you and Director Heiser for amplifying and illuminating the collaboration that has gone on once again. You know, when often tragic circumstances are encountered, it is that human spirit of collaboration that brings us together and allows leadership and those with boots on the ground, those on the front line, to actually get the job done for our citizens. And that's exactly what's happened again. I want to say from the point of view of the Transportation Cabinet that I am proud that we have the best crews in the business serving on Team Kentucky. And I'm proud to say that their dedication has kept travelers safe. Ahead of yesterday's storm, highway technicians were standing by with backhoes, loaders, dump trucks, and chainsaws. They worked throughout the day, along with forestry crews and our electric utilities especially, to clear debris, to get ahead, in fact, of our first responders. And this debris removal ranged from brush to barns as tornadoes and high winds took down trees in more than 20 counties, as the governor already shared with us. This is an illustration of a debris removal in Fayette County just yesterday. And winds also impacted ferry services. The Cave and Rock Ferry on the Ohio River at Marion is closed again today due to high winds. And the Valley View Ferry just south of Lexington on the Kentucky River at Tates Creek Road is closed by high water. Crews also helped detour traffic on I-75 in Fayette County. The governor's already mentioned that. I'm going to just say it again. I-64, and that was at I-64 in eastern Kentucky, Carter and Greenup counties, and other locations was blocked by fallen power lines. So many worked, of course, into the night hauling debris, or they worked alongside the power crews as they removed lines from trees. In Henry County, for example, crews flagged traffic on US 421 near the high school as the utility company worked to restore power. Today, they are back at it, cleaning up highways to keep Kentucky moving and safely. As of 11:45 this morning, we are down to only a few issues on Kentucky roads, and among them, in Oldham County, Kentucky 393, the governor also mentioned this, remains blocked as efforts continue to restore power near lines near the high school. And this is an image of the Oldham County, of the high school site. In Barron County, part of Kentucky 3179, that's Oil Well Road, was washed away during Tuesday's storm. Crews are planning repairs, but it's expected to remain closed for some time. In Carter County, we're putting out signs on I-64 to help with rolling roadblocks today as our electrical crews restore the power lines. Rolling roadblocks will also occur beginning at 1 p.m. today on I-75 in Fayette County for power line work. And a slide is blocking US 25 in Rockcastle County. Other blockages remain on lower volume roads where crews are working to clear those as soon as possible. Also, our electricians are still busy where power outages have left not only homes dark, but also traffic signals. So we want to remind everyone to use caution where signals are out. And remember, this graphic or this slide, this image may come up. The governor mentioned this. If you encounter a dark traffic signal, treat the intersection like a four-way stop. Stop at flashing red signals. Use caution if lights are flashing yellow. And of course, as the governor said, never touch or drive over a fallen power line. I also want to note, while crews worked to clear roadways, many were doing so with limited communication as power outages affected phone and cell services. Others kept chainsaws and trucks moving with no power to their own facilities. So no matter the challenge, our Team Kentucky crews answer the call of public service. Again, I want to thank them for their dedication in keeping our citizens safe in times of crisis. Crews are also facing the challenge of high water response. As of now, we are seeing reports out of Bath and Greenup counties. And here's an image at Warnock in Greenup. So with more rain forecast for today and the next several days, we expect more flooded highways, especially in low-lying areas. Now you're going to hear from Kentucky State Police Commander Burnett in just a minute. Commissioner, I knew I should have elevated that title. I was stuck there for just a second. So with this more rain forecast today, for those of you who have to be on the road, please remember the following safe driving tips. Buckle up and put the phone down. Reduce your speed. Give yourself plenty of time to reach your destination. Keep both hands on the wheel, especially in high winds. I urge everyone to stay weather alert by monitoring weather forecasts, especially as things get chilly this week. Finally, check traffic on a navigational app like Waze or on our website at goky.ky.gov. Okay, now I will turn it back over to the governor. Commissioner?
Thanks, Secretary.
You bet, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor, and your continued support of Kentucky State Police and first responders dealing with these events that seem like is a reoccurrence here in Kentucky. I'm going to give an update. You know, as you're aware, Kentucky State Police, we have 16 posts across our state, and all 16 of those did report some type of damage. Some, not the post, but in the post areas. So we did have some that reported more than others. And some of these that I'll highlight that are of particular interest, I would think would be in our post 14 in Ashland. We reported significant damage to residences, including a mobile home park where several of those homes were destroyed, which we responded in there. We were conducting patrols in those areas. And also there in the same area, we assisted Grayson Rural Electric. You know, we've heard some of the damage that were of big power lines, large power lines, that we're there helping assist those crews with traffic enforcement duties, traffic control, so that those electrical co-ops, they can work and repair those in a timely, safe manner. Also at post 5 at our Campbellsburg post, we reported a tornado touchdown in Henry counties. As the governor said, still trying to confirm in Oldham County, but I do know we had some damage there. Where we assisted fire departments, EMS, and other local authorities throughout the evening. And we also had significant damage that we responded to assist in Bourbon and Anderson counties. But obviously there've been a lot more damage across the state that you've heard. But, you know, the state police, with our 16 posts covering the state, you know, we go and we conduct what support that we can. And it's kind of unique. Kentucky State Police, you know, our main goal is public safety. That's our primary goal. But we've transitioned in the past few years. You know, once the law enforcement function is done, you know, then we're there to support our fellow Kentuckians in any which way that we can. And that is by supporting our first responders and other entities, you know, in state government. And you've heard others before me speak about partnerships. And that's what it's about. You know, Kentucky, you know, they expect us to bring all of our resources together to be able to respond in a timely manner to help our communities. And that's what we do. We coordinate Kentucky Emergency Management, State Emergency Operations Center. So I feel with all the events that we've incurred here in Kentucky over the past few years, we continue to grow from that. But we will continue to respond and be able to help in a support function, you know, after the law enforcement function is done. But, you know, it's kind of a running joke. We talk about, if you don't like the weather in Kentucky, just wait a few hours. Well, that's here we are again. Now, we're transitioning from warm weather and the storms, and now we're going to be transitioning to cooler weather and possibly freezing temperatures. So that's one thing we'll have to look at as far as safety for our motorists out there. As the temperatures continue to drop, these wet covered roadways, we have the potential for black ice to be able to form. So, you know, that will be an additional driving challenge. We just ask for our motorists to be mindful of that, especially as the temperatures drop. Also, please, please refrain from using 911 just for road conditions. Let's keep those lines open for actual life-saving emergencies, is what that's designed for. You heard it mentioned before, and I'm going to mention it again because it's very serious. You talk about water over roadways and the storms and potential downpours that we've had. And I have seen throughout my career multiple fatalities where someone has tried to drive across water across a roadway. And you think it's not that deep, but it is. If you see that, stop, turn around, look for an alternate route. It could potentially save your life, potentially save the life of someone in that vehicle as well. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our troopers and officers and telecommunicators across the state that worked into the night last night from yesterday's events. And also that we'll continue to work with our first responders to navigate through these events that occurred today. and the ones that I'm sure we'll be encountering, as time goes on. But again, this is what partnerships do. And thank you, Governor.
Just as another data point, the state police alone responded to 68 calls for service related to these storms, and then so many more on top of that from local EMS, police, fire, and others. So a big thank you to the state police. I'd close up by just reminding people that natural disasters can also be very stressful. They can have a significant impact on the mental health of those that go through them, as well as those surrounding them. The Disaster Distress Helpline is a 24/7 year-round confidential crisis counseling and emotional support resource for survivors, responders, or anyone who is struggling with distress or other mental health concerns. It's okay to not be okay. And if you need a little help, you can call 1-800-985-5990 for that line. Or remember, the 988 crisis hotline has been available in Kentucky with people that are ready to help you. When a natural disaster has impacted you, oftentimes that trauma is more than our minds are meant to handle. And there's nothing wrong with asking a professional who's trained to help you get through it, to give you that help that you need. The Kentucky Community Crisis Response Team, staffed by first responders and behavioral health providers, is also available to support first responders who are dealing with difficulties. Now, the trauma isn't just what you're through, it's what you've seen and what you've experienced. So first responders may schedule support by calling 888-522-7228. I want to thank everybody who has helped respond to these storms, and I want to thank Kentuckians for continuing to be weather aware. I feel like if this were 8 or 10 years ago, we would have lost a lot more people, but let's keep it up. Let's make sure that we don't become numb, no matter how many of these we go through. Let's keep making sure that we get through them, and we get through them together. All right, we've got some journalists that are here with us today. We'll start with Karen Czar.
Governor, I have 2 questions, one for you and one for Secretary Gray. You were out of town during this disaster. How did you feel communication went between you and the Emergency Operations Center and everything if you were away? And then for Secretary Gray, I know that in Western and Eastern Kentucky, we had problems with roads buckling. Is that potentially an issue that we could see in days to come, or read past that as being a problem?
Yeah, I believe that strong communication occurred yesterday between not just myself and emergency management, local officials and emergency management. I was on the phone with a number of our mayors and our county judges. I was at my son Will's baseball tournament, woke up about 5 that time, knowing when the storms were coming, and tracked them with calls, updates, and other activities all day long. Making sure that everyone knew that we were going to provide every resource that was needed. Only challenge on communication comes when cell service goes down. And what we learned through the tornadoes and the flooding is it's one of the things you got to get back up the fastest. So I want to thank AT&T and our other companies for deploying mobile units that help until we were able to reestablish that line that restored service to much of the area. But when you've been through enough of these, that's one of the most important things, to get back up the fastest, because that's even how oftentimes emergency management communicates. We're also going to need to look a little bit at our radio service in the areas. We didn't have a full radio service working in some areas that we will need in the future.
Can you clarify those areas yet at this point, or not yet?
Not yet, but as we come back, but it's the same general areas where there were cell phone issues. And so what I want to figure out is, how are those related? We got our emergency personnel that are working on a different system out there, so we had contact, within an hour or two, and the ability to communicate. But in every one of these, I want to find out what's that even small thing that we can do better. This is one where, again, I think we got hit by more than 7 tornadoes by the time they're all confirmed. Obviously, that many hasn't been. And we had 1 fatality, which again is tragic, but that many different communities hit with this many tornadoes. We're both fortunate, but we've also put very good communication systems in place, and people have really heeded the warnings.
Thank you.
Well, if we dial back to Eastern Kentucky and the floods were, of course, remarkable in the destruction. I would put it that way. And that affected roads in a real serious way. Slides, washed out conditions, as well as our bridges. We lost more than 130 bridges, and they had to either be repaired or rebuilt. We have not seen that level of destruction here, but we're still getting reports. So we're going to be, in a sense, stay tuned on where we will be.
Thank you.
I'll just thank Secretary Gray. One of the things we've been blessed with in this administration is the retention of most of our key personnel, even through an entire term. So just like I've had to lead through multiple natural disasters, Jim Gray has too. And that experience is really helpful. All right, Rebecca Grapevine.
Yes, Governor, you mentioned the caps on natural disaster spending in the budget. Any sense of what the total economic impact of this to the state might be, and also the cost that the state incurred in terms of response?
Well, we don't even have an approximation yet of the damage. And when we look at it from this type of event, it'll be a couple of things. It'll be public infrastructure. Those are roads and bridges, and we already know we have some damage there. It could be public buildings. And the damage to those. Then you've got certainly utility damage, and that can be both power, which we see, but also water and wastewater. I mean, the floods in Eastern Kentucky caused over $1 billion of water and wastewater damage. Think about that much pressure and water going through them. And then there is the impact on people's homes and their businesses, some of which will be insured, some of it might not be. And so that's one of the reasons we need private citizens to report in addition to the surveys that we do of the public side. If I had to make a prediction now, I believe we will at least come close to the threshold for public assistance. When we look statewide, individual assistance, it'll be a different question. All right, Tom Laytek.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon to you. You mentioned the restrictions that the General Assembly's put on you in the budget that's going through. Do you plan on line item vetoing that part of the budget?
Oh, yes.
Are there other bills or pieces of bills that they've sent you that you're going to do the same with?
Well, we'll have further report out on bills we're signing and vetoing. Since I'm now here, we're likely to do a Team Kentucky update tomorrow, where we'll not only give another update on where we are in response to this weather disaster, but I'll try to run down bills that have been signed and bills that are being vetoed. And while I normally don't talk about a veto until I make it, we cannot have limitations, especially small limitations that we already know we exceed in a year without a massive natural disaster that limit our ability to respond and to help our people. And we've made this plea to leadership on both sides. I admittedly don't understand why it's still in there when these are our Kentucky neighbors. While we have $4 billion in a rainy day fund, and we've had a lot of rainy days, that's just what we went through. It's just not smart policymaking. And as I've gone back on the tornado that hit Trimble County, trying to figure out what would I be able to do in the interim while we needed them to come in and pass a bill. Could we have opened General Butler and run their credit card saying we hope the General Assembly is going to come through and we're going to have more funding, but otherwise we're going to send you a bill? I mean, to do that to people after they've lost their home or have just gone through a tornado or the rest is pretty wrong. But again, I don't know what type of alternatives or solutions we'll have. Again, if they don't want to remove the limitation entirely, at least make it bigger. If we already know we've exceeded it in the last fiscal year, make it bigger. Carolina.
Governor, like you said earlier, unfortunately, we're here again, and there are conversations happening about whether Tornado Alley has shifted east, which would not be great for Kentucky. Is it time to start having conversations about potentially improving our infrastructure, improving the way we build to withstand some of these things?
It's a good question. We are changing the way that we build our infrastructure, and we're even changing the way that we build homes. Now, after the tornadoes in the west and the flooding in the east, for instance, every one of these homes that we dedicate, that a Habitat or a Homes for Hope or a His House Ministries is building, they're all being built, not just to withstand floodwaters, but tornado winds and the rest. We got to make sure the materials we're using, that's everything from siding to the nails to the rest, are the type that can withstand what they face. And I believe that we can do that when it comes to an EF1 and an EF2. Now, what came through the West is pretty tough, and we want to do the best that we can there. But more severe weather is not just our future, it's our present. And while we hope that we won't see major ones or even ones like this, just think about how many days we've had recently in the last year, where rightfully so, everybody's news agencies, newspapers, and the rest have said you got to be really careful today. It's really important that we continue to do that, but also understand that that's the world we're living in. And again, if I have a fear, it's that when we have these days, people start to go numb and don't treat every single one of them as dangerous as it can be. We need every employer to view every single one of them as dangerous as they can be. And this one, everybody did. And so, again, really grateful that while we've lost one young man, which is, again, a tragedy, having no other reports of significant injuries right now for this number of tornadoes, straight line wind, hail, you name it, is pretty incredible. And I give that to our first responders, our meteorologists, the news that gets out there, as well as our people being weather aware. And so if you don't have one now, go get a weather radio. Make sure you pack that bag both for your car in severe weather and in your home. Let's just make sure, if this is our future, that we are prepared for it. So thank you all very much. We'll be out with news about tomorrow. Again, the Lieutenant Governor is headed to Boyd County and Ashland. I'm headed first to the Prospect, Louisville area, and then to Jessamine/Fayette. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor.
So how'd Will do?
He's doing
Look,
okay.
Any important stuff, huh?
He pitched varsity very well.
Good for him.
He's hitting the ball hard, just right to people.